Okay, welcome back to Inside Sources. Today I have another eminent Nigerian professor and politician who was the former Minister of Health between 2010 and 2014. He also ventured into politics. He ran for governorship of Ebonyi State in 2015, a professor of orthopedic surgery. I'd like to welcome to Inside Sources Professor Onyebuchi Chukwu. Prof, you're welcome to Inside Sources.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for coming. Right, so let's take it from the point of view of human capital development, which is your own area as an health expert. So if you look at where we are in terms of, how successive governments have taken the issue of human capital development, do you think that Nigeria is on course the way we manage human capital development? I just want to open that way, but
we're not quite on course because if I say we're on course means there's nothing to worry about. There's a lot to be anxious about. There's a human capital development in Nigeria. And I think the major problem has been our inconsistency. And then second, the passion for politicians not to want to go into areas that are not appear tangible. And yet, human capital development is what a country needs to progress.
Clearly, so we've seen and this this debate around infrastructural development, focusing on health and education, is a very live one, and quite a few people say that the political leaders, in most cases the governors, when we're talking about health and education, that they focus more on infrastructure because, that is where a lot of procurement happens. In your view, what should be the priority, infrastructure or human capital development? What should be the absolute priority?
It's 50-50, but if the truth be told, we're not focusing on the right infrastructure because it's not concrete work that is infrastructure. Infrastructure are those things that are put in place to enable a system perform. And so building a road to where? So when a government is building a road, the question is, why is this road being built? If the government is putting up a building, to what purpose would that building be? So unless you're integrating it with the developmental needs of a country or a state, you'll certainly be doing what you think is infrastructure, and yet you've not even started. Are we doing infrastructure? Where's the electricity in Nigeria? So if someone says we have been focusing on infrastructure, my first question is, do we have electricity?
Very good point.
Do we have water? And yet, year in, year out, cholera ravages the whole country. Is it not a shame that after how many years after Nigeria became a country, more than 100 years, and even if you want to talk about independence, more than 60 years after independence, we still have this cholera ravaging. Anybody still having this regular cholera just means you are totally underdeveloped. So I would say 50-50 because the infrastructure, even to put up an infrastructure, you need the human capital development, those people who know what the infrastructure is needed and how to go about it, how to maintain that infrastructure. And then, of course, you need people to be alive to enjoy the so-called infrastructure. So I would say 50-50, but there's no doubt there's always that control. But I think at any particular point in time, one may be slightly more urgent in terms of demand than the other.
At the moment.
So it depends on the point you are referring to.
Okay. Yeah. So one of your somebody who was also a former minister on this show actually said that while he was minister, and I'd like to have your own experience, while he was minister, federal minister of health, he was traveling around the states and he found out that many governors were building, quote unquote, general hospitals, the buildings. But it turns out that in many of those cases, you have big buildings, fairly equipped, in many cases poorly equipped, but in all cases, no doctors, not enough nurses. Was that your experience when you were also minister?
Well, to a large extent, in some states we are doing well, but I would say most of the states that I I had the opportunity to visit. I couldn't visit all the 36 states, but I think during my time, I was able to go up to 30 states.
Okay.
And in many of these states, the problem has always been death of health care workers. And then the second thing is that there's no system. Because even if you provide the supply side, you have the buildings, you have the equipment, and even if you have the human resources, is the demand there? Why is the demand not there? Is it that the people are not aware? Is it that the people are not satisfied with what is being offered them? Or simply they can't just afford the costs of healthcare? Okay. So we need to build system. We haven't even built any system. So more or less, what you just have is concrete boxes. And then we just have a plaque there, declare it commissioned. And of course, that is the beginning and also the end of the story, I will tell you.
And it's a very, it's a very compelling conversation that we do need to have around healthcare. I mean, you just pointed out to the fact that even up to now, we have not even beaten cholera. That cholera comes every year. You were the minister when we managed Ebola. I did an excellent job. Everybody knows that. Now we have Mpox. We just had cholera. I think the cholera stuff is still going on.
Still going on.
So in your own view, what else do we need to do? So what will be the problem? Why don't we have a system? Why are we still dealing with cholera on a yearly basis?
When I was minister, I used to quip. I say, look, I'm Minister of Health, not Minister of Healthcare. So health is a broader concept than simply healthcare. I think we've overemphasized healthcare in Nigeria. Particularly the media too hasn't helped. Media is always talking about, cancer centers. They are very important. Talking about centers for cardiology, for orthopedic surgery and so on. They are all very important, but we miss the point. If we are talking about health, we should start from prevention. So what do we do to give our people good health? It starts from prevention. It starts from promotion. So what should we prevent? How do we go about preventing? There are diseases that are simple to prevent because all you need is to have a shot or a drop of vaccine. Right. So have we done well in this country for that? No. We've not done well in terms of the fact that we are importing all our required vaccines. Time was when Nigeria was producing half of the world's yellow fever vaccine, for instance. So why did we stop? What happened to that factory in Yaba? And what has happened to the effort we started making, even in my own time, to resuscitate that, but along with the private sector? What has happened? India produces more than 50% of the world's current
vaccines.
Yeah, vaccines.
Wow. So
if India is doing, why couldn't we do it?
So what happened? When you were minister, you said you tried to...
Yeah, before I came on board, before I came in, the Olusegun Obasanjo administration has started discussion with me and Baker. Okay. And they agreed to establish a joint venture called BioVacines Nigeria Limited. And much of the federal government's equity was in form of the land in Yaba, which the government was concerned. Right. While me and Baker was bringing the other aspect. Right. Well, I think during the brief period of President Yar'Adua, for some reasons, it was put on hold, and that was it. But when I came on board, some of the ministry directors were among the files they gave to me and said, if I could resuscitate, that would be good. I studied them and found they were good. I consulted widely, and I was advised to first get in touch with the Attorney General because there were some legal issues that were being raised.
On the land?
Not only on the land, but on facilities and even the arrangement, the agreement. Okay.
Between the federal government and me and Baker?
Me and Baker. So I contacted my colleague who took time, in fact, a number of weeks to study it. That was Mohamed Adoke. Right. And in the end, said that there were a few things we needed to do. Of course, time was of the essence. That agreement was almost terminated according to the number of years. Wow. So we needed a new agreement, but the original one provided for renegotiation. But it was a good program. And then most of the issue they were asking was about the valuation of the land. And instead they had used under Ambassador, they had used a private valuer. Now they say they would like the government instead to be the value. So I contacted my colleague in Ministry of Lands Housing, as it was then known, and they gave us, we paid for it, Ministry of Health paid, but they went ahead and valued it and gave us a report. So armed with that and the Attorney General's report, I then wrote to the President and make my case for it clearly And the president approved it that we should go ahead, but in conjunction with the Minister of Justice.
Okay.
So together with that, we re-invited, because by then, me and Baker had gone to court.
I imagine.
They had gone to court.
Oh, right. Okay.
Breach of contract. So we were able to persuade them, withdraw from the court case. They were happy to do that. And then together, we started. But I left before it was clear. But I was happy that during President Buhari's time, that matter was concluded. So there is BioVacines Nigeria Limited. It's back on track. Okay. But again, after the initial enthusiasm, I think there has been...
So we do have the factory, as it were.
Yes.
But it's just not producing, it's not as productive as you would expect.
No. They've not been able to resume production.
And it's very important. But still, while we're still on issues of infectious diseases, so what do you think about this current mpox state? What threat is there? And what's your assessment of how it's being managed?
Well, the WHO says for countries like Nigeria, they consider what they called moderate threat. Moderate threat in the sense that we are not too near the epicenter, which is the Democratic Republic of Congo. But yet, because we travel a lot.
But we're on the same continent.
We're on the same continent. Nigerians travel. We do travel.
And people come here too.
And people come here. So because of that, there is a real threat to us. In any case, we recorded some cases. Mm-hmm. Even though those confirmed as of last week were just about 40 or thereabout. The good thing this year, unlike 2 years ago, is that so far nobody has died in Nigeria. So which means there's a greater awareness. That is one. And two, we're responding faster. I think so far what the Nigerian authorities through the Nigeria Center for Disease Control is doing is good. What we need to do, because just like what happened to us during the Ebola time, we thought we were prepared, but when it landed, we were just not ready, is to heighten the awareness again, particularly at our ports of entry, air, sea, and land crossings. Even though, from what I know as a former minister, the land one is the most challenging.
True.
Because we have so many illegal land crossings. So it's the most challenging. But it's just for us to keep talking about it, keep talking to our health workers at every level, from primary care up to the tertiary care, that this thing exists. Continue to show the photographs of people, continue to let the public know what could make you suspect that someone has mpox. So that once someone has a case, we need to raise the index of suspicion. But otherwise, I think fairly what we put on ground is good enough.
So I've always wanted to ask this question from some of the experts. So in 2020 we had this COVID, scare and real problem. We shut down the economy for upwards of a couple months. Now, but when you look at it with the benefit of hindsight, the prevalent rate and the fact that how many people really died and stuff like that. Did you think that it was the right decision to actually shut down our economy for months? Did we really have to do that? I mean, hindsight now.
Well, with hindsight, I think we needed to do that because we didn't have enough to provide the coverage. If we had put a system in place that was adequate enough to reduce improve the surveillance, improve the ability to make a diagnosis or to suspect that this could be a case, then absolutely there was no need to do that. But the reason why that was done was, first, it was an evolving disease. We didn't quite understand what it was all about. There was a global hysteria. And people ask me, how do you treat hysteria? Hysteria is to first remove what is causing people to have hysteria.
To calm down.
So some of the things you do are a bit psychological. They're not real. For instance, when you say your temperature will be taken, it is purely as a way to assuage fear. So it's more psychological than real, because many people did a lot of funny things. Even like they did during Ebola, people will go and take analgesics before they go to the airport. So even if they had fever, at that point, it will be suppressed. So there were issues. And of course, there are many things that can lead to fever. But those things at that particular time when you have mass hysteria, because, one thing about human beings, it's easier to look at things with hindsight. For instance, someone will now find a couple in their 60s or 70s, all alone, living in a house with many rooms. And you're saying, was it what they were building? But you forgot that at a particular point in time for the couple, they actually needed those rooms.
True.
So my question to answer that question is to go back at that time again, recreate that time and say, with what was going on, I think it was good to do that for the government.
And the reason, thank you.
But in reality,
yeah.
if we removed the hysteria, there may not have been any need. Coupled with the fact that we were not too sure that we've put in place what to use in monitoring.
And, you spoke as an expert. I'm just speaking as a journalist.
No. Even at that time, I remember even within the social media, the present governor of Anambra, he's an economist,
yes,
Professor Soludo,
right.
actually put up something where he was going along your lines that maybe we're hitting this with a sledgehammer. Because, yes, it's important to save lives, but what about livelihood? And I remember I also wrote something that circulated widely then in the kind of also urging that we shouldn't just look at it purely as an economic issue. Because both of them are intertwined, yes. So we look at it at first addressing an immediate need, and then
interesting. Let's move to politics. Of course, you ran for governor in 2015, and now you're also a member of the Ohaneze Restructuring Committee. So let's talk a bit of politics, and let me just ask you. So. What is the idea behind, and I'm not, because I just want you to talk about it, Ohaneze setting up its own restructuring committee, and what is the kind of postulation that you imagine we should be talking about, in this country at this time, around restructuring?
Well, Ohaneze, even though it is non-partisan, but it's a developmental, socio-economic, political group.
Right.
Dedicated to the welfare of Ndigbo,
right?
People who have the Igbo ethnic
stock,
and is one of the major ethnic groups in Nigeria.
Yeah,
and therefore there's no doubt there's a problem with the setup we have.
I agree.
We don't know whether we are running a federation or not. It's difficult to define what we are running. In some aspects, largely, we're actually unitary with some sub-national administrative units. In some aspects, we actually try to see whether we can pretend really to be a federation. But we are less a federation today than we were soon after independence. There's no doubt about that. So because now the talks have resumed again about whether we need to tweak something in our constitutional arrangement to give more powers to the federating units. Even now, I don't even know which one is it the local governments or the states that are federating units?
States.
So there's a lot of confusion. But the truth is that we all generally, if we are being honest, there's need to look at what the system we are running. And so that made Ohaneze also as an interested party to say, we don't need to wait. Why don't we also have a committee, come up with something we can look at at plenary, and also submit to the appropriate bodies as our own thoughts.
To engage,
Actually, what, from the point of view of Ndigbo, what will be something that will help them.
But so, Prof, in your own view now, personally, you've been in government, you're in politics, you're also a professor. What do you think is the high mark of restructuring? I mean, if there's one or two things that you think ought to change, and the goal is national development, in your own view.
Number one, the greatest problem today in Nigeria, the way it is security. We're also insecure now. Nobody is safe. So what do we need to change that will improve security? I thought at a particular time the federal government was like, we may go with state police.
State police, yeah.
I'm for it. I've been screaming about it. I mean, we should not be afraid. We should not be afraid. The way, Newton's law said, the first Newton's law said, unless you move us, we'll stay where we are.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So that has governed human beings generally. In every aspect, you will see that first Newton's law. Remember, even before we started talking about the cashless economy and so on, remember now Eme, the then governor of Central Bank, was invited to all kinds of places to explain this idea that he wants everything done with cash. But today, what's happening?
We're really...
We're almost there. Even the smallest retailers will bring out something and say, yes.
You have POS.
If he doesn't have the neighbor has POS.
Yeah.
It seems normal now. But I can imagine that the people who were Nigeria were not yet trying for it. So it's the same thing with this state police. There's no other way. What we have centrally has been overwhelmed. And in any case, security needs a lot of local intelligence, and only the people themselves that can police their area. So it's not even a matter for discussion. It's just what we need to do. So that's one area, if you ask me.
That is quite. But what do you then think about the fears that have been expressed? That look, we have a lot of governors these days that are behaving like emperors.
Hasn't the federal government to be using police? I mean, if you want to talk about abuse, anything can be abused. Just like medication. One of the medications, I'm a doctor, but one of the medications that have been so thoroughly abused is tramadol. Will I now say because tramadol has been abused, we should no longer use it in hospitals?
Withdraw it.
No. Even in the communication system, the same ICT weapon we use is what criminals use.
True.
The same mobile phones.
So we should work around how to ensure it's not abused.
Everything is always a two-sided coin. Everything in life always advantage. What you ask yourself at that particular time, which one will be of use to you? If the useful aspects are more useful, then you now begin to think of how to mitigate the effects of the adverse effects. Yeah.
Interesting. Just because of our time, I would like to also ask you maybe the last question. What is your assessment of the state of the nation? There's a lot of worry in the land. We just have a series of protests. There are even people saying that, okay, in October, they're going to resume. How will you assess, like a professor, you're a former minister, how will you assess the state of the nation? Where do you think we are?
Well, actually, people like me find it difficult. Why? Because presently, I'm in APC. I've been in APC since 2016. And at the national level, APC is in charge. Yeah. So people will say, it's you now. No. So it's been a problem. But if the truth is said, as of now, I don't think we're doing the right thing. I don't think so. It's easy to, even as a doctor, if someone has a similarly intractable problem, yes, you give hope to the person, but you must solve the pain. Someone is in pain, and you are saying, don't worry, in 3 months' time, that patient will leave you. Are you crazy as a doctor? So, as a doctor, I know there are immediate things that need to be done, medium-term things, and then the long-term. But always, the immediate thing must be solved. They're not too much. Right now, people are suffering.
Yeah. And it seems that the main cause of this suffering, is the removal of the subsidy. Now, but like people say, if you go back to the campaign, all the presidential candidates, the major ones said that we have to remove subsidy, but it is the removal of subsidy that got us here.
I think we cannot just withdraw subsidy completely. I think no matter how we look at it, it can never, even now, there's still subsidy anyway. There's still subsidy. The truth is the major thing that brings us revenue is with the oil and gas sector. Yeah. And therefore, the government, if that's the only thing the president does, is go there. Yeah, it's okay to say the president is a minister, but you need to you must know everything thoroughly. It's one place that we've not gotten right. And I don't see what is there. It's one place our leaders need to exercise that selflessness. Right now, the whole oil and gas sector is so very opaque in terms of what is going on. Totally opaque. It shouldn't be so.
I agree with you entirely, Prof. In fact,
it shouldn't be so.
Yeah. I have even said on this program that, look, the president did a thorough investigation of CBN, and we saw the rot. And that he should also do the same thing.
The same thing and follow up with action.
Gas sector,
If we get the oil sector, we know where the problem is. We know. Apart from the fact that we don't even know how much we're exporting. Secondly, it's being stolen by people in government.
Serious.
And their associates. Because nobody can bring, like P2B will tell you, nobody can bring those kind of oil tankers. No poor man can afford to bring it in. And it's not something you bring in and nobody, because if we now say that those oil tankers come and our security agencies don't know about it, then there's no security in Nigeria then. That means any country can take over the government even. True. So those is not possible. So we know. But there's something missing. We are not taking action. Yeah. Well, it's simple. We're not taking action.
Very
Once we get the oil and gas sector right, there's no way we'll not give to some subsidy. It is not possible. Right. And once we do that, the Naira will appreciate naturally.
I believe so.
It's something that I think we know where the problem is, but we're not doing what we should do. It's as simple as that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prof. And I agree with you very well. And I'm happy that you've also added your voice to the fact that we need to fix the oil and gas sector. It's so critical to our economy. Thank you for coming
Thank you so much.
And thank you for your service, while you were minister. And thank you for continuing to engage on the issues. We believe that once we don't relent, we will get the Nigeria of our dreams.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Inside Sources will be right back.